Conversation Hour with Richard Fidler.
Good morning to you, Richard Fidler with you on this Friday morning. One of the world's biggest rock bands, Coldplay, recently played in Madison Square Gardens in London, and the frontman Chris Martin got up and said he'd been pretty chuffed with the sellout crowd until he'd heard that the Wiggles had sold it out for a week, doing 3 shows a day. That pretty much sums up the success of the Wiggles, quietly going about the business of becoming Australia's highest-earning entertainers. These guys have done it in skivvies. Anthony Field is the Wiggle in blue, but he is, of course, a thinking, feeling human being in his own right, and he's my first guest this morning. Welcome to you, Anthony.
Thanks, Richard.
Do you sometimes feel the need to scream, "I am more than the sum of my colour"?
No, not at all. I'm quite chuffed by it all. You know, I like it.
What is it like to play Madison Square Garden to sell out audiences like that?
It was surreal. We're going back this year as well, but the whole thing in America is quite amazing because, especially when we first, we didn't realise that it had taken off in America. We were over here, and we got on a flight, and the guy at customs in America recognised us, and I said to Murray, I think things have changed a bit because we went on TV there. The difference would be we'd started on television, and it really caught on. So we live in this bubble over here in Australia, and when we went over there, it was amazing, just the difference. We did the Macy Day Parade, and people were coming to the shows that you could only dream about. Robert De Niro, Jerry Seinfeld, you know, Chris Rock, all these guys. So
Robert De Niro, was he doing some of the dancing and the action along with the songs?
No, he honestly was just... He was Robert De Niro to me. I've watched too many movies, and I was almost afraid to look at him. He was sitting there with his popcorn, and he had his little boy there, you know. And that's the thing. You don't get a big head about it because, you know, they're just bringing their children. They're not actually there to see you. You're there for their children.
Well, of course. Success in Australia is one thing, but in the United States, I'm imagining it must be like being sort of caught up on all of you on a giant surfboard, sort of being lurched up on top of a giant wave and sort of like drawn along on the top of it. Is that what it feels like?
It does. It's quite funny. We meet people. We meet a lot of sporting superstars in America who, not being right up on it, you don't have the same sort of awe that the Americans who are around you are. Like we met Steve Young, who's a Hall of Fame American football player, and I know him as Steve because we met him the last time we were there, and I say, "G'day, Steve." And all these American roadies were going, "Do you know who you're talking to?" And I was going, "Steve." And they went, "He's the Hall of Fame, you know, quarterback. You know, he took over from Joe Montana." And
yeah, but he's not Shane Webke, is he? He's not Joey Johns, you know. Yeah.
Well, that's true. Although Shaquille O'Neal's been 3 years in a row to the show, and we had a funny thing with him. He's a great fella. He's huge. He's about 7'2" or 3", and Murray's 6'4", and he really made Murray look little. But he came backstage. we met him. He actually got his own skivvy made, a red skivvy. He's there with he's got lots of kids. He's in the front row. Well, this is true.
Shaquille O'Neal with his own red skivvy.
Yeah, this is all true. And he's in the front row, and we're doing the show, and, you know, g'day, Shaq. You know, I mean, I don't know if that sounds like big time, but we actually know him to say hello, right? Anyway, we're doing the show, and his manager comes. So this is in Miami where the Heat play, Miami Heat play. So it's his stadium, really. And side stage, his manager comes up and says to Murray, "Shaq wants on." And, as Murray said, "What am I going to say?" So the next thing is Shaq's side stage. He wants to do hot potato with us, and so we give him Murray's guitar, and it's totally off the cuff, you know. And we say, we've got a little bit of a guest here. You know, he comes on stage. There's 8,000 people in the audience. They go absolutely bananas. They've, you know, flashlights everywhere. But the funniest thing was Shaquille was on rest from the Miami Heat. He was on sick leave. ESPN got hold of a video of him on stage doing hot potato. They ran it that night. He can't be that sick. He's up with the Wiggles doing hot potato. So it was quite an amazing. The whole thing, that, you know, that is totally surreal. But we've still got the footage of him on stage with us.
I suppose Americans must like that about you, that you're just friendly. You treat people like the same all the world over. You know, Americans go, "Oh my God, that's Shaquille O'Neal," you know, and all that. But if you just treat them as ordinary people, they must like that about you.
Well, it's quite, you know, the Australian way is, you know, how you going, you know, g'day, you know, but it happened, and I'm really not it is name dropping, but I'm not meaning to. At Madison Square Garden the last time, because we'd met Matthew Broderick the year before and met Jerry Seinfeld, they came together, and they came up, at the end of the show, they came right up to the front of the stage, and I went, "Oh, g'day, Matthew. How you going, Jerry?" And after the show, I said to Murray, "I just said, g'day, Matthew. Hi, Jerry." I didn't know what else to say, you know, but it was...
Well, yeah, well, I mean, what I was to say, like, all hail, Jerry, all hail. Yes.
Yeah, well, I felt like you should say that, you know, but, you know, yeah, we're big fans of those people, don't get me wrong.
Well, I detected a note of bitterness in Chris Martin from Coldplay's comments there. So, look, I had this idea. Look, you can don't say no to it straight away, okay, Anthony? That you put out your own version of A Rush of Blood to the Head, the Coldplay album, and those song titles, you keep the song titles, but write your own versions of them, like clocks, you know, could be like, it's 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock,
yeah.
Okay? And Don't Panic could be Don't Panic, keep your head straight, you know, just change it all around like that.
It's a good...
Don't say no straight away. Just think about it, okay?
No, it's good. Murray's right up on it. He'll be the one. He's a big Coldplay fan.
Is he? Oh, good. Okay. Yeah. Want to get on top of them then once again. I think increase the bitterness there where you can.
Yeah.
I guess the conversation now this morning is Anthony Field, the man from the Wiggles himself, the guy in blue. Anthony, your background is actually in childhood education, and was that the impetus for starting the Wiggles? An educational thing or an entertainment thing?
It was educational. At Macquarie University, we actually did our first. It was a tape at that stage where we just did it was basically like a music project. We were learning all about theatre in education, and music in education for young children under 5. And myself and Murray and Greg, we put a tape together with a couple other people who were in the course at the time. And from that, the idea to do, hey, why don't we do some shows, you know, for birthday parties. So the first 2 years of the Wiggles, we're just doing birthday parties, and we were preschool teaching, and so it's been quite funny what's happened, you know.
Well, yeah, was it grounded in child psychology?
It was. What I loved about the early childhood education course at Macquarie, it was all about child psychology. It was probably 70% of the course was child development, which is, you know, child psychology and how children develop physically. Whereas opposed to when you do primary school teaching somewhere else, which is all about curriculum. So we were really grounded in, and it was a very interesting course. It taught, you actually can apply a lot what you know about children to adults as well, you know, dealing, things like, you know, people would say, well, can't you teach that child to share? And we remember at university they told us, well, it's hard for adults to share, let alone children, you know. So you don't have these unrealistic expectations of children when you know where they're coming from.